Hi, I'm Mary O'Malley, and I'm a GTD coach. And Mariko, I will let you introduce yourself.
Hello, I'm Mariko DeWire, shop Miller. I am a pediatric oncologist by training. Most importantly, I am a wife and a mom.
And you're amazing. And you and I did the foundation course and the strategy course together. So
Yes.
we're here today to share a little bit about that journey. And I am excited to talk to you because when I look back at my notes from where we started and then where we ended with strategy, we just covered so much territory. And the first question I have is about your actual system. So you started when you and I met. Will you describe what your system looked like when we started foundation? And then will you describe what your system looks like now?
Yes. So this may show my age, but I've always had a love for planning. I loved going to the Franklin Covey store, and I loved making a new planner every year. And so I loved how tangible it was, and also I like the process of writing and organizing. And so I started off by listening to the David Allen book and thought I would get a analog planner with I used the Moleskin notebook, and I set it up according to the GTD recommendations. And I still, using your Mary's word, would say I hit a lot of friction, and that system was not aligned with me evolving my GTD practice. And however, I think as all of us are doers, I was determined it had to be 100% perfect in order to use it. Whereas GTD Foundation and then that transition to strategy had helped me realize that it's the process of learning GTD and building. This sounds like a punchline, but it's not intended, but the foundation. So building that foundation. And as you shared with me, your system will evolve as you evolve. And I think learning that and accepting it, and also accepting the word practice and trusting the process. Now my system is, I still like the writing perspective. So I use a disc bound notebook more for reflections and pearls that I'd like to implement in my next weekly review, and also a someday maybe list. And then I transitioned to Todoist as part of my digital system in order for it to keep up as it keeps up with life personally and professionally.
So that's a really, really good point that you're so fast and so good and had so much coming at you. It wasn't about the tracking of it. It was like literally the drag or the friction was that you were flipping back and forth between pages, and the tech could just go so much faster and allow you to
Mm-hmm.
track so much more. But I think we kind of couldn't have gotten there until we got there. Like it took all of that experimentation and iteration to then, I think you showed up one day. You were like, "I'm using Todoist," and you had flipped through it. I don't think it was a big transition once it showed up. And that hybrid system is really important. When some people name they want kind of a single tool, and for a lot of us that's just not how we engage. It's not practical, or it's not like it's sticky enough for us. So
Mm-hmm.
we developed that hybrid system, which you so beautifully did as we worked together. And then, so my next piece, you talked about praising the process. And as you went, one of the things you said is when we started was, I can overstructure my system and
Mm-hmm.
then I fail.
Mm-hmm.
And it was almost that hyperstructure and that rigidity that was your problem. So we worked for a really long time to like breathe and build in some awareness of the process and not the result. And that led us to talking about verbs and what does done look like and what does doing look like. So I was wondering if you could just talk a little bit about that process for you.
So I think starting off would be my list manager as part of GTD. Our next actions become part of our list. And I think I've learned in this process, words are very important to me. And so being able to name something has allowed me to embrace it. And so I remember I had list manager as a title. And in my mind, a list manager is something that I need to check off and need to execute and complete. Whereas you had helped me create that space in changing the term to list choices, and to where I have a choice. And if I'm feeling on point and I can do deep work, this is the list I choose from. If I am fried, my brain hurts, however, I want to feel productive, that list is quick wins. I've named it quick wins. And so I, the word choice has really helped me embrace the GTD system. And actually, the GTD framework has, it's crazy, but has created the space for me to create those choices.
You had some of the best named lists. The one that I tell other clients about quite a bit is the list called Personal Uber. Do you remember
Yes.
what that list was? What was on it?
Yes, yes. And so now our kids, one is a freshman in college and the other one is a junior in high school. But pre-driving, I was their personal Uber. And I thought, when I take them to baseball practice, I'm not going to go home, because by the time I go home and come back, it's time to pick up. And so I would make a list, and some people may consider this an anywhere list, yet anywhere could be so broad. So my personal Uber list was, if I'm in the car and I have my phone, I have my Todoist app, I also have my disc binder, and I have a good solid hour and a half to do what is needed on that list. And then now our children drive, and so I'm very fortunate to no longer need that list. However, it was what was needed in that season of life.
Well, it is so creative. And for all the working parents that I coach, I tell them about this and because it's like, okay, where can you um, where do you think to do some of these things? Let's group it and
Mm-hmm.
let's name it something. And then that's a context as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I always tell them about personal Uber and the amount of times that parents, especially parents with kids that play sports, are like, oh, that's a good one.
Mm-hmm.
It allows us to kind of engage in a productive and creative way. So this brings me to my next point, which is areas of focus. You are a busy, high achieving professional, and you are a wife, and you are a mom, and you are you outside of those things as well.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
so, areas of focus was a big part of strategy for us. And I wanted to hear you talk a little bit about how your areas of focus evolved and how you kind of built some projects around those.
Sure. And hence, that's why I reached out to GTD. I had a very blessed career, and then I became a wife and a mom at an accelerated rate very quickly, and my career accelerated. And then I also did a career change, all of this very quickly in a short time frame. And so, again, I think GTD helped create the space to define those areas of focus. And also, the majority of my adult life has been career driven. And so, GTD has helped create space. I started I stole this term from a fun fiction book that I was reading called Operation Joy, and I decided to make that an area of focus.
And one of those projects in Operation Joy was finding your unicorn space.
Oh,
So,
yes.
yeah. So, talk a little bit about that. I think that is
Sure.
a cool opportunity.
Well, it's thanks to you and GTD for supporting the videos, because I frequently will watch GTD videos during a lunch break or a mini break, or I want to get inspired. And you shared a video of Unicorn Space and also the book by Eve Rodsky. And I checked out the book and I listened to the book in my car. And I remember you saying, creativity is not an option. It is a must. And so I took on that challenge, and I took on the exercises in the book to define kind of where that unicorn space is. And I thought I would put that under my areas of focus for Operation Joy. And my first little piece was learning how to make sourdough bread. And for those that know me very well, I am a woman who purchases and prepares and does not spend time in the kitchen. And so this was a big endeavor. And because it does take a few days, it does take a few hours within a day. But I think it really highlights my unicorn space because I can be creative. I also can share this with ones, whether it's my family or now my friends. And I now look forward to it. I do it probably on a regular basis, about every other week.
There are so many things that I'm so impressed with about you and are so incredible about you. And one thing that seems like a little thing but is kind of small, you said that you watch YouTube videos of GTD stuff, but
Mm-hmm.
you were one of the first clients I've ever had that would quote, and I'd think, "Ooh, that's really cool. Who said that?" And then you would say, "You did," and it was one of or Meg did, or I would, "Oh,
Mm-hmm.
that was really beautifully
Mm-hmm.
said," and like Julie had said it in one of her videos. And so I wanted to make sure to get from you kind of a couple videos that you think are really helpful for someone who is working on their system and maybe thinking about coaching, or different videos that you watched that helped you get unstuck or helped move you along as you keep working on your process with this.
Well, the list is big. But right off the
Yeah.
bat, I would say your video talking about your journey and becoming a GTDer and a GTD coach, and this was before I got connected with you. So I was excited when it was you, because I was like, she's famous. She's the one that brought me to GTD Foundation. You sharing that a lot was going on in your life, and you carried the book, and you felt that you've read the book a few times, and then carrying it, you felt osmosis would occur, like you would be able to
I always
implement this
love
GTD.
that.
Yes. And
Yes.
I was like, I've been listening. I've listened to the book 2 times in the car, and I've also done a lot of online like research. And I was like, for all this time I'm spending, I could really be spending with a GTD coach and putting forth the effort and seeing the fruit of it. So that's the very first one. And then I would say the others, I love how all the different GTD coaches share their management systems. Also, you share your GTD tool neutral, and that, and you sharing how each of you implement your different systems. And I also really enjoy watching Judy Ireland. She uses lovely words, and I think one word I love is the joyful curiosity.
That's great. Julie Ireland, that video where she talks about like a joyful engagement and joyful curiosity, I really like as well. And so we'll be sure to link that one below if anyone's, I don't know, curious and wants to watch. We'll get that easily accessible. We kind of progressed, right? You had all these lists, this paper system, you were flipping back and forth, but that was okay. We got your email handled, your calendar was solid. Then we built in the weekly review, and then we moved through that, and the weekly review evolved into welcoming in areas of focus, and then your projects began to reflect different areas of focus. And then your system was like growing to incorporate not just the professional but the personal as well. And you said something that in my notes I wrote down and then circled it and then highlighted it and then have a smiley face, and it says renegotiate is my favorite word.
So, and for me, I think it goes back to that execution and implementation of execution. And so when I am unable to execute it, rather than turn that into, well, you're not organized enough, get your act together, or why didn't you plan better? It was like,
Yes.
oh, I just have something different that I have to do at this time point, and therefore I will renegotiate and rearrange the schedule for so I can focus on this unplanned event. Or I think as a mother, we've all had sick children the day of and meetings planned that day. And so, again, I think the common theme, and I suspect a lot of clients say this, is that GTD creates that space so you can be prepared for that unplanned and renegotiate. It doesn't mean you're not organized.
Yeah, that part. Yes, right. I would say, like, don't talk about my friend like that when people show up and
Mm-hmm.
hard on themselves for things they could have never seen coming,
Mm-hmm.
or they pivoted to something and it means they didn't get the other things done, but they got something important done. But we just, because of the limits of time and space, we can't get it all done. And David Allen has this quote, and I believe it's in Ready for Anything, where he says, in order to be comfortable with what you're doing, you have to have situational awareness of all the things you're not doing.
Mm-hmm.
And so GTD is a list as much as what you're gonna do, but it's a list also of all the things you're not doing. You're choosing to let sit and be calm for a second while you focus on like this sick kid or whatever has shown up unplanned in your life, and then you can go back to it and pick it back up and move on. That's a really, really good point.
You're the best coach ever. and I would like to share, I think, the cost for others. I think the cost for GTD, whether it's foundation, strategy, or most recently integration, it can be a bit daunting, especially if your company does not pay for it. There are a lot of companies that do support it, and thumbs up to all of those companies, because I definitely think it brings a lot of fruit to the company. However, for me, when I approach GTD and reaching out and coaching, it was for both professional and personal, and implementing it in all aspects of my life. And as you shared, work is work, whether it's professionally or personally. And it was definitely worth the cost. We personally paid for it. My company did not pay for this. And I think it definitely went above and beyond my expectations. And again, back to where I earlier shared, being online and watching the videos and researching it's all helpful, yet the foundation, again, no pun intended for foundation, but I mean, the foundation is that, yes, it is that coaching and practicing, and it is well worth it, because you think of all the time you're trying to do it on your own, and it's just not as fruitful as the coaching. So for all those out there worried about the price, it is well worth it. Your life is worth it, and go GTD.
That was beautifully said. I couldn't have said that better myself. Mariko, thank you so much for doing this today. I'm so grateful for you, and you're just a joy and wonderful, and I just, I'm so grateful for you, and grateful that you took this time to talk to me today.
For more GTD resources, visit davidco.com and David Allen's YouTube channel. To explore coaching, email info@gtdfocus.com or visit gtdfocus.com and click Talk to a Coach.